Hey, good morning, good day, good afternoon, whatever it is for you. Welcome to another episode of B2B Sales and Marketing Fry Talks. As usually, every second Friday, we share insights, best practices, and anecdotes from technology companies. And this time, together with me, as usually, is my co-host, Roland Sozolinch, and myself, Andres Yushchenko from ibd-consulting. We have prepared some topic to be discussed, and this topic is about how to sell and how to market to the technical audience, heavily technical audience, like engineers and people like that. And why we decided to share this and have this conversation about this specific topic is that Roland just recently was preparing for one of the workshops we were running on the event, big event here in Latvia, in Riga. And he discovered quite an interesting study specifically about the technical audience. And we thought that, hey, it would be a good idea probably to share it with the broader audience and have some kind of conversation around this. So, Roland, could you just maybe share a bit of the background on this study and the topic itself?
Yes, absolutely. I think how to sell in general to technical buyers such as engineers is an extremely important topic for many businesses, and also to those who seemingly are not really selling to technical audiences, because Andres, I think we have talked in more than one of our webcasts that actually there are several people involved in buying decisions. And sometimes companies who have very technical product, they know their buyer and they are indeed selling to a very technical person. But in other cases, it may happen that company who is dealing or communicating mostly with business people actually have somewhere in background highly technical buyer as well. And I think this is certainly possible with like rather technical products, but also with software products which are, let's say, dealing with some confidential, restricted information, personal data, which needs to be integrated in a company's IT infrastructure, right? And in such cases, the purchase will not happen unless the very technical, very engineering person gives their green light. So it means that there are somewhere either an IT engineer or, let's say, a security analyst involved who will review your product, who will be researching your content. And unless they agree and unless they say that this is a safe and this is a good choice, your business buyers will actually be blocked from making decision.
Yeah. I think we all know, and as you said, we spoke about this in our previous episodes, that definitely in the B2B space, there are more just one buyer. And typically that's called buyer committee or any other names for this. But in general, this is a group of people which consist of different roles, representative in the organization, including technical, right? That's the one scenario. Another one is that, for instance, if you are selling like heavily industry specific solution or heavily like technical solution, it's just naturally that your buyers are similar engineers like yourself, right? Or like your development team whom you're approaching. And that is also means that you connect with this technical audience in two ways. One is that when you need to get them on board for some decision which is driven by your main buyer personas, would it be a business person or financial or whatever else, just to support this decision, or it's a primarily buyer persona for you, for your business and for your services or product. Yeah.
Yes, and also you need to keep in mind that if you look generally at the population of buyers in general, then what we have seen, and particularly during the years of COVID, is that again it was something that we talked about even pre-COVID quite a lot, that buyers more and more want to do self-service and they don't want to talk with sales and so on. And over COVID, this has become even more extreme. even less people today are willing to talk with sales. And what is interesting is that the audience of engineers are actually even more extreme in this regard. And if we look at research, which surveyed thousands of engineers, actually quite a lot of interesting things pop up. So, for example, engineers are much more driven than your typical business buyer in terms of doing research. So, research tells that 30% of engineers are ready not to give up their search after the first top 3 results on the search page or the first search page on, let's say, Google, but they are willing to dig further up to some 5 pages of research. In terms of business users, it's quite common to assume that if your result is not on first page, you are as good as dead, and it's not the case with engineers. Moreover, engineers are very independent in their research, right? So they will dig deep. They will review up to 6 pieces of content before they make their mind. And it's also quite interesting if we look at reasons why would they ever talk with sales. Well, first of all, they are reluctant to talk with sales, and particularly they are reluctant to be lectured or told what they need to choose and why. And the reasons why they would still talk with sales are actually quite unusual. Well, first of all, they would talk with sales to validate the findings of their independent research. That's the most important reason. And second reason to talk with sales is actually if they have faced such complexity that at the end of the day they need to ask for advice, right? And that's approximately about it. So, and if we look at what does it tells, what companies need to do if technical buyer is involved in buying process, is again make work or life for technical buyer easier and make sure that they have technical documentation available. Also make sure that your marketing content, including technical documentation, is written in technical, formal language. Because engineers and technical buyers, the last thing they want to see is something written by marketing copywriter, and they really want to avoid anything that is too much pushing sales. So they are looking for research for technical information and like that.
Yeah, it's interesting insights. What made me think of one thing that probably it's not a bad idea to be not on the first page of the search engine, so that probably engineers they look for information which is on the third or even fifth page of the search engine, and if you are there, probably they even might trust you more. I don't know, it's my kind of assumption. I don't know whether it's true or not. And secondly, I think I was really surprised that they consumed so much of the content. You said like it's about 6 pieces of the content, and that again make me think of the thing related to the content creation, right? So very often what we see that companies rely just on very simple type of content, right? I don't know, maybe one ebook or one webinar or a couple of webinars. It seems that more granular you go, for the engineers, more chances you have them to be engaged with your content and so on. And secondly, of course, probably you cannot rely on just ChatGPT generated content, because they are looking for more in-depth and more professional, more kind of technical content, which is written by specialists like that.
Yes, and my own experience also in my own relationship with engineers shows that they are indeed extremely good at searching and finding really hidden, really obscure, really obsolete content. And you must also make sure that your content is up to date. Because if you have engineering buyer, most likely he will have found more content about you than you ever think actually exists, right? And he may face you with some kind of information or arguments or data that has been let's say positioned, published earlier, which is now obsolete, but they will ask questions about it. So be ready for that. Another interesting piece of data or statistics is that actually, if ever engineer is willing to talk with sales, then they choose email over a call. Like 51% of engineers would prefer to have conversation over email, right? Only 23 would.
It's probably because of nature of the engineers, that they're most introvert person, as we know, on the planet typically.
Yes, this could be the case, right? Only 23% would prefer a phone call, and if we consider in-person meetings, then that's something they don't like. So only 9% would be saying that I would be ready actually to meet and have a discussion. So again, companies who are dealing with technical buyers or part of their buyers are technical must take this thing into consideration. And as we discussed, engineers are also very committed really to dig through highly complex and technical content, right? And if we look deeper, who they think are good authors or who would they trust in terms of technical content, then first of all, they would be looking for content which is written by other engineers at vendor organizations, right? Or some kind of experts, which actually makes sense. And I would say here that I mean, in our experience with many of our customers, they say that a barrier to publish content for them is that their engineers are not good writers, or they don't have time to create content and so on. And here I think even if engineers prefer to consume content which is written by engineers, then do make use of third parties who can do, let's say, interviews of your engineers and create content based on that, or who can take, let's say, papers written by engineers or presentations and convert it into different type of content. And here I mean technical content, just well written technical content, and not necessarily marketing or sales presentations.
Yeah, and what I wanted to just add on top of what you was sharing is that first of all, it seems that you, from the marketing perspective, I'm just trying to understand how we can apply it, to the marketing activities. If they prefer like this kind of indirect channels, like email, like maybe some messaging or something like that, that is where you can actually try to create some opportunities for you or through the marketing activities. Like, for instance, instead of really doing a cold calls or something, you can leverage more like a direct messaging, right, in the LinkedIn or in other channels, on things like that. Or maybe even have a chat option on your website where engineers are coming and they're reading maybe your blogs or any other information. Then there is a chat where they can ask questions or so.
Well, actually, no. The study we looked in preparing this content actually tells that chat is not something that engineers use. And one more implication that I would like to talk about in terms of companies is that engineers are very averse to leave their personal data, right? And this means that it's not a good idea to create highly technical content and have it only available for engineers if they leave their personal data, phone number, email, and so on. This is not what engineers like. So while this still may work with, let's say, business people, make sure that technical experts can freely access your technical documentation. Because you see, again, because they are not really willing to talk with your sales, they may not ever let you know that they need this document. They just don't register for it, they don't write you, and in the buying group, perhaps they provide, let's say, a negative review of their product based on the fact that they think they cannot trust you because you are asking to register to get a basic technical documents. So my recommendation, therefore, would be make sure these technical documents are available, make sure it's easy to get them, and just make sure you give everything that these technical buyers need to be able to make decision or provide some recommendation to the buying group.
So in other words, you need to or try to avoid gating this type of the content, or at least be very conscious about what are you asking and what type of the content you provide, right? It should be probably very super highly valuable so that they can feel this value immediately after they provide some information about themselves, right? And otherwise, probably it's better to leverage other tactics like remarketing or anything like that instead of lead forms or anything. What I also found interesting when it comes to the channels, this report also shares that engineers consider YouTube and LinkedIn and GitHub as the most valuable social media platforms. So it kind of in a way surprised me, like YouTube, for instance. LinkedIn is kind of okay, GitHub obviously, right? But YouTube, and moreover, what I read also that they use almost 30% of the engineers use TikTok. What do you think, Roland, of this insight?
I really don't know. It's difficult to wrap my mind around it. Probably that is the case. I have tried using TikTok, and always after a bit of use, I throw it out simply because it's so addictive and it eats away my life, right? So I don't find it as a good source of content. But nevertheless, we have to recognize that TikTok is growing and it's becoming bigger and bigger every day. If we look at engineers and if we look at channels, yes, YouTube is big, but I think there's good reason. I know myself, if I have any problem, technical or other, one of the first sources to figure out how to do the thing is just search on YouTube. And also from my previous experience, we have had excellent results with using YouTube in terms of explaining or showing, demonstrating highly complex products. But I think it's important to figure out where your audience is hanging out. Because indeed, there may be that in some kind of product areas, they're hanging out, let's say, on LinkedIn, maybe LinkedIn groups, or there is some, let's say, influencer or blogger or analyst who's publishing, let's say, videos on YouTube and has a large following with lots of engagements. But it may also be that the right group of engineers is using some subreddit on Reddit, or there's community on Quora and so on. And also do not disregard offline communities. And a few episodes back, we had, as example, Aldis Erglis from Emergent, who said that he's using with great success actually meetups, which are quite often physical gatherings of like-minded technical people who are discussing certain technical areas. So I would say that first of all, you have to figure out where the community is, and then you need to go and see how you can contribute to discussion in this community.
Yeah, and the same report shares that actually it's about more than half of the engineers attend these in-person events, and that's definitely, from the marketing perspective, something to be leveraged, right? Excuse me. And another interesting insight on the channels is that 2/3 of them, even more, 73%, listen to work-related podcasts, which again can be used as a great way of building a community and driving some kind of demand, long-term demand, of course, through the these discussions and conversations in form of podcast, because that's what actually they consume.
Yes, and I think if we look at general at audience, or if we try to answer a question, how to really build trust, how to build following, how to build loyalty with a highly technical audience, I think a key thing is to figure out how can you contribute to this community. Because as soon as you are able to produce and publish technical content, white papers, scientific articles, overviews, results of your product tests, etc. So you're naturally becoming, how to say, more and more prominent in respective groups. So my advice to deep tech startup companies would be try to build the community, or try to join community as soon as possible, and try to become contributor to this community, engage in discussions, help people out, publish original content, comment on content of others, and that would help you build trust and awareness even years before your product is actually ready to hit the market.
What was another interesting insight from this report is which shares about where this audience actually turning to find the content. And I guess you already mentioned some of these channels, but what was surprising to me is that actually as a main source for them is the supplier. So they actually turning directly to the vendor websites and then look for this information directly there. So that that means that you have to really make sure that your content is properly available to the audience, right? And so in different formats, would it be a blog, would it be a wiki or anything else?
Yes, and also this report includes data of what type of content engineers find the most useful, right? And engineers are very straightforward things. So first of all, the most important thing for them is product data sheet, right? That's number one. What I find interesting is that number two, and probably it relates to all industries that are producing components or subsystems to be integrated in some other solutions. Actually, second most important thing is CAD drawing, actually, right? Third place is product demo video, right? So don't try to sell us, just show, demonstrate, have a video, right? And that is followed by product reviews, testimonials, white papers, how-to videos, etc., etc. So kind of more typical content that is typically consumed by also very often by business people.
And you see from, again, buyer's journey perspective, if you look to these preferences and try to think how we can adjust our marketing strategy, it's clearly for me that basically those engineers come to you where they already have made their mind almost, right, about what type of solution they need. It seems they are not looking for like very kind of high-level educational content. That is something what they do on their own. But when it comes to really finding the solution, they are looking for very specific things like a product data sheet, as you said. It's clearly that the product data sheet is already like something what you want to have when you have made your mind about what type of solutions you will be, in general, include into your comparison or into consideration and things like that. And the same for the product demos or reviews. That is where you want just to see, okay, but how this product work, how it looks like. So just to reconfirm some of your assumptions, or maybe try to find some arguments against or for this solution. Interestingly, that things like ROI calculator, like I don't know, some ebooks and case studies are not as important as this kind of very product specific information. Or what do you think, Roland?
Again, I think engineers are people who look for straightforward information in the first place. And I think that things like ebooks may be seen more as some marketing manipulated information which tries to sell something to you. And in general, if we look also to market data or feedback from buyers regarding marketing content in general, always some of the top responses is stop pushing your products. If you make some kind of arguments or claims, make sure you can justify it with data or with references and so on. So to put it simply, audience tells you very clearly, don't try to sell us, don't try to bullshit us, don't try to manipulate us. And I think in this regard, engineers are even more extreme in this sense. So trying, again, as I mentioned, using marketing copywriters to create content specifically for engineers probably is not a good idea. And probably it's also not good idea to overproduce, let's say, product demo videos for engineers, right? It's perfectly okay if it's a simple video shot with perhaps a mobile phone, right? But what is important is to demonstrate key product features and back up the claims that you are making about your product.
Yeah, and another aspect is also that this audience is heavily relying on industry experts. So the same is reconfirmed in this report. So almost 85% of engineers say that they kind of turn to some sort of experts or pundits in the industry to get all the latest information to understand trends and learn something, right? And yeah.
And actually, it's just one very straightforward thing. To really be successful in selling to engineers, you either have to become authority or source of information, thought leadership yourself, or another way, which often is disregarded by companies. You see, in many industries, right as you mentioned, are certain analysts or experts, or let's say even influencers or influential bloggers who are providing information about the industry and who are considered like trustful sources. And very often for those people, they make living by being able to explain the industry or tell what's the industry landscape, what are different solutions, how they are different between themselves, and so on. And I have found in my own experience very powerful actually to reaching out to those people with your information, offering them, let's say, to do a 20 minutes briefing about your solution or about your company. And again, because the people are making living from being knowledgeable about industry, very often they are more than happy to sit down with you and listen to you explaining your solution and so on. And see, after a couple of days, suddenly they start mentioning you in their industry reports or in their interviews and so on. So this also must not be disregarded. So the best, of course, is to become thought leader yourself, and the second best option is to reach out and actually empower thought leaders to know about your solution, about your company, and be able to explain it to other participants of respective ecosystem.
Yeah, and just to share some of examples from one of latest projects we were doing for the one of the very niche industry specific client. And what we found out that those influencers, though, these are not necessarily just a single person, right? So it can be also like some institution or some organization where this community is turning for latest updates, for maybe some guidance, for some visions, and so on and so forth. So if you are playing in this type of market where it is very industry heavy and niche specialized solution, I would recommend also doing research and understanding whom this audience actually turning for this type of information. And the easiest way of doing this, and we're repeating it again and again, is just ask them directly. Ask your audience directly, hey, where are you turning for this information and what type of information you are looking for? And it will be very, very revealing.
Yes, so I think we are almost out of time. From my perspective, I feel quite excited, and for me it was interesting to read this study. To some extent, it confirms what I think I knew already, and I think from my perspective, I would say that the big bottom line of this study, at least for me, is that make sure you have technical content ready, available, and it's easy to find, and you don't ask for registration. Technical buyers will find their way to your website and they will study these materials, but they only will do it if it's actually there and it is available. What's your impression? What's the key takeaways from this study, from your opinion, Andres?
Yeah, you did a great summary of this. One additional thing, what kind of I would mention is that try to put your expertise in front of this audience. Find a way how you can basically make them trust you because you already have your own engineers, you have your kind of insights on the solution, you have many other valuable information what you can just simply share, right? And by that, gaining their insight and become a thought leader and becoming a source of information for them. And that definitely will kind of generate demand for your business as well, I'm sure. And as you mentioned, avoid trying selling them directly. Try to use this kind of content strategy and community type of activities in order to create the motion for the demand creation. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. I think try to help. Don't push your product. Don't sell. Help.
Yeah, excellent. We have to wrap up, and as usually, we would like to remind that you can always find all the content related to the Fry Talks previous episodes by searching for the Fry Talks hashtag on LinkedIn, or just subscribe to our B2B Sales and Marketing Fry Talk podcast on platform of your preference. We also have a YouTube channel where you can find information from these episodes, but also from our webinars outside of these streams. And so if you have any kind of topics what you would like us to cover, just hit us a message and we will be happy to invite some experts and have a conversation. Or maybe you would like to become a next speaker for our podcast. Just let us know, and we will be happy to discuss it with you. Otherwise, we wish you a great rest of the Friday, as usually. Hopefully, sunny and wonderful weekend, relaxing weekend, and then we are back in 2 weeks with a new topic for the conversation. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Talk to you in 2 weeks. Bye-bye.